Welcome, everyone, to Fantasy Football Today. DFS, it's your Week 16 main slate. My name is Sia Nejad, and of course, I'm joined by Meg Shoup and Mike McClure. We've got an 11-game slate. Meg, Mike, before I even bring you all in, I want to mention a programming note. Next week and the week after, we're going to be doing this show on Friday instead of Thursday, which frankly, some of you may prefer. We're not going to do it on Christmas. We'll do it the day after. Same with the following Friday. So just a programming note there. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm great, Sia. Great time of the year. We've got an awesome Thursday night football game tonight. Tomorrow, college football playoff. Saturday, college football playoff. NFL games that are flexed to Saturday, a full Sunday slate. It's a holiday week. It's just a glorious time of year here, Sia.
I know you didn't mean to do this, but that's a great promo to, if you didn't catch the early edge this morning, catch the early edge about this game tonight, the Thursday night football game, but also on the Sportsline YouTube channel, our college football playoff picks show with Mike Emery Hunt and Tom Casale is a must watch before you watch these college football games this weekend. Meg, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, just like Mike. Very excited for a weekend starting today, full of great football. So very, very excited for that. I always love when we get a little Saturday NFL hit at this time of year.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun two-game slate. Thor 7760 says, let's break up this workday, shall we? I think that's a great attitude. Grey Goose Hayes is in here. Josh is in here. Jonathan Ortez is in here. Thanks for being in here. Hit the like button. If you haven't already reviewed the podcast, please do it. I think we should jump right into games. Again, we've got 7 at 1 o'clock. We got 4 at 4 o'clock. I want to give our contest winners a shout out from last week. Solo Mex 49, Soap or Soapy 64, Elyard, let's see, Jaffo KDR, and T Warren DraftKings. Those were our top 5. Our contest is already live. You see it in the chat. You'll see it in the YouTube description, podcast description. $5 to join, only 200 in the contest. Very fun contest. Top 15 get paid out. Make sure you join. All right, let's get to it. Let's not waste any time. Bucs at the Panthers, 45.5 point total. I think we're still looking at here. And Bucs on the road, favored by 3 points. This is a game, Mike, that I feel like is under the radar, and I'm not sure if it should be. And it's only under the radar because I think there's a few games we're going to talk about that we're really going to want to lean into, especially from a stacking standpoint. I ask you, Mike, is this a game that is almost a casualty of those other games, or are you leaning into this game?
I will certainly have pieces. I would say I'm not going to go crazy for one stack. I could get to Baker. I could even get to Bryce. I like receivers, in terms of Mike Evans. But overall, it's not one that it is kind of a little bit of a casualty. I get the interest. I want to be interested in it, but not getting a ton of pieces. Now, will I play one-offs with Mike Evans or McMillan? Yeah, I think that's a fine strategy. I think Bucky Irving can also be in the player pool. There's just one spot in particular that we'll get to that I'm just way, way, way overweight on the field on. So I'll be a little underweight here, but still have Evans, Tet McMillan, and Bucky in the player pool.
Franco Quattrini says, good morning, DFS crew. Good morning to you as well, Meg. So I think you could justify a Baker stack on this slate, whether you're talking about 1 o'clock or main slate or what have you. And we're talking like potential double stack. I think Baker at 5,700 with Mike Evans. Now, I'm not expecting necessarily a repeat performance, catching 6 of 12 targets as Matt has put up here for 132 yards in his return from an injury. I think a lot of that was Kobe Bryant on him and just taking advantage of a matchup. But still, he's only 6,300. Abuka, I think, is interesting. A big-time hit-or-miss guy from a DFS standpoint at 5,900. Godwin is on here. K-Dot, and, of course, Jalen McMillan's only 3,800. Do you like a Baker stack? And if not, what pieces do you like in this game?
I really do like a Baker stack. And, here's why. We're at the time of the season, the end of the season here, where obviously we're monitoring a ton of injuries. We're also going to be monitoring a ton of incentives here in the next couple of weeks, but we're also monitoring the games that mean absolutely nothing to some teams and absolutely everything to others. And this game means absolutely everything to both teams. This is for the NFC South. They play twice in the next 3 weeks, I believe. And this is for the NFC South, essentially. So I guess I'm weighting this a little more because of the meaning of this game. And so I really like a Baker Mike Evans stack, and feel free to double stack it with whichever other, because there are multiple other pass catching options for the Bucs. feel free to double stack that as well. And then I really personally like Coker on the other side at a really nice price point. So I really do have a lot of interest in this game, probably for the meaning of it, and hoping that leads to points and an over here. But yeah, really, really like a Baker stack or double stack.
Yeah, I think Jalen Coker at 4,400 is really interesting. Now, Ted McMillan didn't practice Wednesday. I suspect he's going to play, but I mean, even if he does, Coker's getting some looks. I mean, I think you could take a dart on Xavier Legette as well in this game, especially if it's a negative game script. But Coker would be the guy I do think is a low floor there, of course. He'd be the guy. But Mike, you had a comment before we move on to the next game about if you're playing a Baker stack, you got to play it a certain way.
Yeah, you don't have to, obviously. It can always get there in certain fashions. To me, the way it gets there on this particular slate is probably a double or even a triple. Would be the scenario where essentially Tampa does score 31 or more in this game. Evans is clearly going to be in your Baker Mayfield stack. I think there's very little doubt to that. The real question that I've got is K. Otten going to be out there? He's been limited in practice. I tend to think they want him out there. He makes a fine stacking partner for a second or third leg there at only 3,400. But yeah, the scenarios I see him getting there would be just big offensive performance. The majority of builds that I'm getting would be Evans, Otten, and Baker together. The only other one that I'm getting that I like quite a bit would be Mayfield, Irving, Evans, and Godwin all together. And that's the scenario that they're, scoring 30 plus in this game.
Meg, are you out on the primary running backs here, Bucky Irving and Rico Dowdle? And I got to be honest, I could see if you think Baker stacks are going to get there, that means this implied total of 24 for the Bucs. Probably, you think they're going to outscore that. And Chuba Hubbard at 4,800. If you're trying to save money, like Hubbard in that type of game script actually makes a lot of sense to me. And honestly, even in a neutral game script, he could potentially get there for you. Just any thoughts on the running backs before we move on to Bills Browns?
Yeah, you make a great point on Chuba Hubbard, 4,800, getting more of the pass catching work. So I really do like that as another cheap run back option in addition to Coker. Don't know that I'll get to many of the other running back plays in this game. I don't find it to be a great running back slate because there's so many amazing running backs, in primetime games and on the Saturday slate. So I still don't see myself getting to the other running backs, but I do like the Hubbard call out.
Well, let's talk about a couple of great running backs in this Bills versus Browns game. Bills on the road, 10.5-point favorites, only a 41.5-point total here. Implied total for the Browns pretty low, 15.5, but the Bills 26. Meg, I'll start with you. James Cook is a guy that often gets overlooked for whatever reason. It might be price related and things of that nature. And sometimes it's just matchup related. We look at this Browns matchup, and I think earlier in the season, we would have said, oh, James Cook is just definitely not going to have a great game. I mean, I think this Browns rush defense has tailed off a little bit. So I think James Cook is in play. Now, am I getting to James Cook? Probably not, but are you is the question.
He's in my pool. So yeah, I don't know how much I prioritize him over the other running backs, but very similar to you. It's not like, oh, well, I'm crossing it out because it's against the Browns. No, I think we've seen enough leaks there that I definitely have James Cook in my pool. And he's probably honestly really one of the only ones I'm interested in. I don't mind Judkins on the other side against the Bills run defense. I mean, you could go to the cheaper tight end options in this game, of course, as well. But I definitely have James Cook as a consideration, and he is in my player pool.
Mike, I know you won Quinshad Judkins last week. This does feel like a decent spot to go back to him, given that it's the Bills rush defense. I'm still not super convinced that I want to play him. Do you like these running backs? And is there anybody else you'd play? Like, for example, does Josh Allen fit into your player pool?
I'm probably not going to get anywhere in this game. If I did, the first piece in would be Harold Fannin, the tight end, would be the scenario. I don't know how much Cleveland's going to fight back in this particular one. I think Buffalo, if the game is in hand, I really think they could be super conservative to the point of not even running a ton of James Cook in the second half of this game. This is their last road game of the year. They finish up with 2 home games. They got their big win over the Patriots last week. This is a team that they've been so close for so long. I really think they shift into playoff mode now in terms of the only thing that matters is being as healthy as possible for the playoffs. I'm going to not try to get there. Like, is there a scenario they put up 40 and Josh Allen and Cook have 4 combined touchdowns? Yes, definitely. I also think there's a scenario where they have 1 touchdown each and middling performances that don't separate from the field at all in terms of where their price points are. So I'll be off this game largely, almost completely. Looking at this point, again, the first piece in, if I had to play something, would be Fannin at tight end, and I'm not. That's really it.
Meg, Fannin only 4,500. Josh Allen, yes or no? I mean, again, it's a 11-game slate. There's a lot of other great quarterbacks. It just sounds like we're largely, not completely, but largely out on this game. And it makes sense. It's a 10.5 point spread. Bills are on the road. Now, this isn't a weather game per se. The wind might be like somewhat decent, 15 to 20 miles per hour, but it's just going to be cold weather. And frankly, there's not a lot of games this week, or I don't think there's any that are going to be drastically affected by precipitation or high winds or things of that nature. Of course, I say that here on a Thursday, but this just still feels like a game where it's like, I think we can probably move on. What say you, Meg?
Same. Yeah. Okay. There's too many other quarterback spots that I'm focusing on. So not getting to Allen, I definitely think we can move on.
Well, curious if you think this is a quarterback spot. Meg, I'm going to start with you again here. Chiefs at the Titans. Well, I probably should have started with Mike, but Meg, I'll start with you anyway, because Patrick Mahomes no longer this season, of course. Hopefully he can start next season. He can start week 1 coming off a couple of torn ligaments. I think I heard, what was it, ACL and LCL. I don't know if the PCL was affected as well, but certainly he's going to be out for quite some time. Gardner Minshew steps in at Tennessee. He's 4,500. And Meg, you could make the argument that, listen, Tennessee is certainly a pass funnel defense. You don't run on Tennessee, and the Chiefs can't run anyway. So I don't know. You could take a shot at Gardner Minshew. I think we have some concerns about Rashee Rice. Yeah, Rashee Rice, concussion, didn't practice on Wednesday. I suspect he might not play, and maybe a stack with like somebody like Worthy or Hollywood Brown is in play. Either way, Kelsey only 4,700 as well. Do you like anything on this Chiefs side? And oh, by the way, Tony Pollard, who's playing well, is only 5,400.
Yeah, on the Chiefs side, I think if Rice was in, that would make it a lot more interesting. With Rice likely being out in concussion protocol, I don't see me doing a Minshew stack. And here I probably actually just have some interest in Pollard. Does he go 3 games in a row here? I don't know, but he's priced it a way that he's in my player pool. I don't know how that I'll prioritize him necessarily, but he's in my player pool the way he's been playing the last couple of weeks. But yeah, don't have a lot of interest here. Other than that, I think you could go to either defense if you wanted to.
Mike, there's a couple of solid value running backs, in my opinion, and there might be even more depending on injury situations. I think we have to kind of assess the Saints backfield, monitor, Nick Chubb and Woody Marks and the Texans. But you look at Tony Pollard at 5,400. You look at Kenneth Gainwell, who we'll talk about later, at, I believe, 5,100. Pollard seems like he's in a pretty good spot against the Chiefs defense that I don't know how hard they're going to go on defense. Just mentally, I don't know how much they're going to be there. It's a close spread. Now it's a low scoring total here at 37.5. Do you buy into Tony Pollard, and do you like anything on the Chiefs side?
So Pollard, I think, is okay. I'm not playing him. I'm not going to get there. I totally get it. And there's definitely a scenario that they have a lot of success, and Kansas City's totally checked out at this point. I'm telling you, I'm going all the way to the top to Jahmyr Gibbs in every lineup, no matter what, all week. So that eats up a lot of my running back exposure already. So I'm not going to get there. The interesting thing on the Kansas City side will be Minshew at that price. So computers are going to love him, right? In terms of projections, they're going to love it. I will be cautiously optimistic, I suppose. I don't want Rice to play if I play Minshew. Actually, I want it to just be a scenario where it's Worthy and some other dudes, and it would just be no stacking. It would just be playing Gardner Minshew and looking for him to spread the football around, not trying to pick a stack partner, taking advantage of just the raw fantasy points per dollar and what it allows you to build around him would be my personal recommendation on that. The only thing I would say with Kansas City is you never want to speculate that teams don't want to win games, but there is no team out there right now that wants to lose games more than Kansas City the rest of the way. The way the NFL schedule works, this team has played a first place schedule essentially every year. Knowing that we're looking at 9 months on Patrick Mahomes' return, plus or minus a month or two, either direction, right? You're looking at a scenario where you may be playing a few games without him, and in a very competitive division, the way the Broncos are, a healthy Chargers team next year, like that matters a lot. So I'm not suggesting they're going to tank. I wouldn't be shocked if Minshew wasn't playing quarterback the final 2 weeks and we go to practice squad situation. Kansas City does not want to win this game, and the Titans don't either. So it'll be very interesting to see the way it plays out. Models are going to love Minshew. If I play him, it'll be one-off, but largely going to avoid this situation.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the Chiefs depth chart, and to your point about the practice squad, they really only have 2 guys active, at least as it states right now. So I'm not exactly sure who's on the practice squad. That'll be interesting because it's a good idea. Like, why we know what Gardner Minshew has to offer. Why not promote somebody over the last couple of games? See what you got. All right, I think we can move on from that game. Well, Mike, let me ask you: if Rashee Rice is out, you did mention Xavier Worthy, but how about Hollywood Brown at 3,900? Would he be a consideration for you again against the Tennessee Titans back end? That's not very good.
Possibly one-off play. Sure. For me, it would be Worthy. We know the upside that Worthy represents pretty much. I know Hollywood Brown throughout his career has. Hollywood Brown to me is someone that at this point really needs good receivers around him and a great quarterback to really capitalize on the upside that he offers. And when you potentially remove Rashee Rice and obviously Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce is kind of certainly going to be emotionally and mentally checked out at this point, I would assume. I don't think you have enough quality separators on the field with him to really help Hollywood Brown. So, and the price point on Worthy at 4,400, like I can tell you if Rice is ruled out, almost every computer and optimizer is going to basically say stack Minshew and Worthy because it's, essentially what price Rashee Rice should be, but you're getting a quarterback and a receiver for that price. I'll be cautious and not too optimistic on it because I have no idea what this team's going to look like this week, other than it's been a long time of deep postseason runs. It's just mentally, physically exhausted now on the road on the holiday week. Just not a situation I want to go after.
And playing on Christmas too. Yeah.
Right. They turn right around and play on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The week after that.
It's kind of funny because, you get to this time of year and we're talking about Gardner Minshew. We're talking about we didn't even mention Cam Ward's name, but obviously I don't think anybody's stacking Cam Ward against the Chiefs here. But you talk about like practice squad guys, and the next game we're going to get to after the break, of course, is Jets Saints with Tyler Shoup and Brady Cook. I mean, it's crazy. And by the way, the next game after that, and there's some fantasy goodness here. It's not like they're bad games to talk about from a DFS standpoint, but the next game we're going to talk about after that is Jackson Dart and JJ McCarthy. It was just like the quarterback position is very interesting. But when we get to some of the later games, start talking about Jacoby Brissett, start talking about Jared Goff. There are some stacks that I think people are going to be very interested. Some expensive, some not as expensive, that we're going to be very interested in. But we'll cover all of that right after this message from our partners.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go! Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
We are back on Fantasy Football today. DFS, it's Meg, it's Mike, it's Sia Nejad, and it's the Jets and the Saints. Interesting running back situation with the Saints. Obviously, it looks like it's going to be Audric Estime or Evan Hall. That's going to go, I should say, both, as Devin Neal's been ruled out. Now, we'll see about Alvin Kamara. I suspect he's not going to play, but I don't know that for a fact. It's a 4.5-point spread. So Saints are favored by 4.5, 40.5 point totals. This is one of the lower totals. Implied total for the Saints, 22.5. Mike, Tyler Shoup is only 5,400. Now, caveat there is there's a lot of quarterbacks during that low 5K range, like Jacoby Brissett, for example, who's still only 5,300 for some reason, that I'd probably rather play over Tyler Shoup. But Shoup looks like he's in a good spot against the Jets. Do we like anything on this Saints side, Mike?
Not really. I mean, Chris Olave's got enough talent, but he's 6,500, and there's a lot of wide receivers in that range. Juwan Johnson, someone you can always mention at 4K, but no, I mean the more likely scenario is that I essentially punt defense with the Jets at 2,100 and move on.
How about Breece Hall on the other side? Would you pair that defense with Breece Hall, or that's a no?
I don't think I'm going to get there. So Breece Hall is just like the Gardner Minshew situation. Like, we know the talent that he has. We have seen some of the opportunity and kind of the way things have played out. on a fantasy points per dollar basis, he's going to project well on computers, and he's going to be relatively popular because of that. I just question, do we have a scenario where Breece Hall can get us 100 yards and 2 touchdowns? And I mean, yes, it's certainly within the range of outcome, but man, I don't know. I want to see it before I go for it. So I at elevated ownership, I'm not removing them from my player pool yet today, but I don't want to be overweight on Breece this week.
Meg, I think people will want to get involved in this game on some level because there's so many cheap pieces. But I think I'm all the way out. Like, I'm a big fan of Adonai Mitchell, but with Brady Cook at the helm, Brady Cook, by the way, 4,200, and Adonai Mitchell's only 4,500. But I just don't think I can get there with Adonai or John Mechie. And then on the other side, Juwan Johnson at 4K is a very good price. But there's other or I should say tight ends I like better that are, let's say, 5K, or Theo Johnson, 3,700. We'll get to him in just a second. Olave is just expensive enough for me to be like, nah, I'm probably not going there either. And with so much value at the running back position, I don't even want to like mess with Estime and Evan Hall. So that's my dissertation on this. I'm just going to kind of move on. And I don't think this game's going to burn me. But Meg, do you like anything here?
I'm pretty much the same as you. Don't think I'm really getting to Estime or the other cheap options. I do think there's other spots to go to, like you said, the running back position, out on the Jets completely. I have a little interest in Juwan Johnson. And if you wanted to stack him with Shoup, like maybe it's an early only stack. The Jets are the gift that keeps giving. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, not your favorite quarterback in the league, goes for 6 total touchdowns last week, and lights best ball playoffs on fire. So it could be in the range of outcomes where the Jets defense is just so bad, so depleted, and is a gift to the opposing offense that I'm let me just say, he's in my player pool. I'm considering it. I have to see on Olave's ownership, maybe a Shoup, Olave, Juwan Johnson stack for the 1 p.m. only is something I consider, but it's not like a priority to me.
I mean, and I will say this, with Devon Vele out, if there becomes a situation where we get some clarity on Mason Tipton, for example, at 3,200, I think I'd be just to make my lineups work in other places. I think I'd be willing to take a shot at like Mason Tipton or Dante Pettis if, again, I had some clarity that they were going to be on the field a lot. They were going to get their opportunity because those guys are so cheap. But again, I don't think that clarity is going to be there at all with the running back or the wide receiver position. So I think it's fair to move on from here. Meg, before we get to Vikings Giants, and I'm going to let you lead off there, give me 20 seconds on whether Kyle Pitts just ruined your best ball year or maybe helped it. And maybe you could mention Trevor too. Like, I feel like what I'm hearing is that if you didn't have Kyle Pitts in best ball, like you were in some trouble.
Yes, if you were in some trouble, you could still survive it because obviously there were some Kyle Pitts teams that weren't built well, that were only built with 2 quarterbacks that were out or something along those lines. So you could survive it. I was not a Kyle Pitts girl this season, had been burned too many times in the past. So it was not a good week 15 overall. I had enough Lawrence that got some through, have some other types of format of contest, like marathon sprint, where kind of like the last 3 weeks together mean a lot. So wasn't happy with the Kyle Pitts, especially the 3rd touchdown on Thursday night was pretty much losing my mind. So it tore up best ball playoffs, certainly. And you were either on one side or the other, but we move on to semifinals in week 16 and we'll see what this week brings.
Well, good luck with that. I heard somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was like, yeah, I had a couple of Kyle Pitts teams that moved on, but it was because those happened to be auto drafts and I just got Kyle Pitts. And it's like, okay, well, that's great.
Wow. Yeah.
Let's go to the Vikings and the Giants. This one, I believe we're looking at a 43.5 point total. Vikings favored by 3 on the road. I mean, JJ McCarthy. I mean, talk about quarterbacks that I've been down on basically their entire careers. Let's say JJ McCarthy, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence. They all look pretty good right now. I don't think it's going to last, but I've been wrong before. Either way, JJ McCarthy makes only 4,900. Jackson Dart, 5,800. It's the receivers that I think are really interesting on both sides here. Justin Jefferson, a flat 6K, which is, pretty wild. Jordan Addison, 5K. Jalen Naylor, who showed up, and that was a lot of that was matchup related, 3,500. And then on the other side, Wan'Dale Robinson, 6,200, kind of priced up here. Theo Johnson, 3,700. A lot of little pieces here, and I didn't even mention the running backs. Meg, do you like anything in this 43.5 point total?
Well, first of all, we were talking pre-show, and we are living in a world at the end of 2025 where Wan'Dale Robinson is priced higher than Justin Jefferson. So let's all take a minute to soak that
Amazing.
in. It's just wow.
Amazing.
But yet Justin Jefferson, when you keep saying, but he's only this price, but he's only this price. Well, he's still, hasn't gotten there for us. So I don't know that I can do it. You certainly could. McCarthy is priced cheap. Jefferson is the cheapest we've ever seen, of course. And I don't blame anybody for doing it. I don't think I'm going to get there, but I totally get the people that want to. I actually don't think I'm going to get to a lot in this game. I like a lot of kind of other spots as we move forward. So I don't think I'll get a lot to this game. Again, don't fault the people that want to stack up McCarthy and Jefferson and hope this is the week that, Jefferson, I talked about incentives earlier. There are still things you want to get him to 1,000 yards. You want to get him to certain benchmark, statistical things. So with them being out of the playoffs, but I don't think that I will be doing it.
Mike, this is another game that it's pretty easy for me to move on from. As far as the Giants side, I get the Theo Johnson argument. I don't know that I could play Wan'Dale at 6,200, especially, when you talk about Tyrone Tracy, who's getting a lot of work that he deserves. But this is a Brian Flores defense at the end of the day. I'm just not going to be a believer that this offense has upside. And then when I look at the Vikings side, listen, if you want to be in on JJ McCarthy and Justin Jefferson, totally fine. But I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. And oh, by the way, they're both 5,200. It'd be nice if Jordan Mason was 4,700 and Aaron Jones was 50. There was some sort of split, and then I'd be like, hey, maybe it's sneaky to play Jordan Mason here. But it's just not the case. I think those two are going to split in terms of their touches to a large degree. Mike, that's me. That's a long way of me saying I'm out on this game, but I get the JJ to JJ thing. What say you?
Yeah, I like McCarthy. He's got just enough rushing upside. This is a team that I think they're going to win a bunch of games, play some spoiler the rest of the way. I really do. And you look at the way they're set up, again, probably don't want to be winning games. They're healthy right now at this particular point, and they're not as bad as their record is at this point in the season. So I like it. I like McCarthy because of the rushing upside. He's got just enough rushing upside to really kind of warrant some of the price tags. I love the fact that he's facing off against Jackson Dart, another kind of higher profile young quarterback on the other side. Love Aaron Jones. I'll be playing a lot of Aaron Jones this week. He's very much going to be involved in the passing game still. I think that Aaron Jones is a great play at 52. So I'll have a lot of Jones and a lot of, not a lot, but I'll have a lot of Jones. I'll have a little bit of JJ McCarthy. Would probably have Justin Jefferson stacked with JJ in that particular spot. I don't think I'm getting anything on the Giants side.
Yeah, Aaron Jones is interesting. So I think I was either on this show or one of the early edge shows where I liked it might have been the prop show, where I said I liked his over 2.5 receptions, and he got it in the first half. He got 3 receptions in the first half. I don't think he got a lot of receiving work in the second. I just wonder about how this game goes for the Giants specifically and how much Aaron is utilized versus Jordan Mason. But I get the argument. And frankly, JJ McCarthy still has a ton to prove. And this would be the matchup for him to prove it. So, I really get the argument where KOC is like, JJ needs some confidence. And so if we can get him going early and just show the world that last week or, wasn't just a flash in the pan. And I could see JJ throwing for 3 touchdowns. So maybe I could change my tune a little bit. He's only 4,900. So, Mike, real quick, if I'm stacking JJ McCarthy, is it just with Justin Jefferson, or am I adding a second element in here?
For me, it would be, I'm going to look and pull up what my builds are, but I would guess that it's going to be mostly Jefferson, but also Jones. So it would be Aaron Jones, JJ McCarthy, and a pass catcher. The scenario that JJ is going to pay this off most likely is he either gets there in a moderate scoring game right at the team total where he has 1 rushing touchdown and say 40 rushing yards and a passing touchdown, or he just essentially gets there in a big way and they score 30 points. And if he does that, you're going to want, in my opinion, you're going to want one of the receivers and one of the running backs with him. I think Jones is going to be way more involved in the pass catching game. So I would play him that way. yeah, it'd be like a example of a McCarthy build would be McCarthy, Jones, Jahmyr Gibbs would be my first 3 in. And then I'd have Justin Jefferson, Amon St. Brown.
Okay. Love it. Let's go to the Chargers and the Cowboys, still finishing up this 1:00 slate. Justin Herbert, Meg, very interesting to me at a flat 6K. I don't know that I'm getting to this game. Again, there's a lot of games later on in the show that we're all kind of getting to, or at least I am. But this is a 49.5 point total. Cowboys favored by 2.5 at home. That's an interesting line, in my opinion. We do have to wait on some practice reports as it relates to CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to be fine. Javonte Williams had that neck injury. He was sort of in and out of the game, but ended up finishing the game. Quentin Johnston limited on Wednesday with a groin issue. That's something to point out as well. But Meg, this Dallas defense doesn't look quite as formidable. I don't know that Quentin Williams is going to be in this one, and the back end doesn't look super good, super great. Herbert's only 6K. Do we like Herbert? And if so, are we stacking him with anyone?
I do. I actually have interest in both quarterback stacks in this game, obviously dependent on all the practice reports of to who you actually land to stack with, but I'm open to it. The total, I do think Dak in the offense, while they played terrible, and if we're talking about basketball, let me down in a big way on Sunday night, but against a very formidable Vikings defense and defensive coordinator. So while I respect the Chargers defense, I have interest in both quarterback stacks in this one. But if I am not playing Herbert, I do have a lot of interest in Omarion Hampton with, as you said, Quentin Williams most likely out. He's been, huge for the Cowboys run defense. And if he's out, then I have a lot more interest in Hampton. So I could actually the summary of it is I could see me doing more skinny stacks of this game, like a Hampton Lamb or McConkey, Pickens or something like that. I see myself doing more skinny than big game stacks with the quarterbacks, but I am open to both quarterbacks. And that's why I'm actually have to narrow down my quarterback pool, if I'm being honest.
Mike, how do we feel about Dak and Justin Herbert, and who else do you like in this game?
I don't like anything in this game, which is crazy. It's indoors. It's 49.5 point total. Herbert's not healthy. I don't know. I don't, let's see. I mean, Herbert's the first, he's not even in the top 6 quarterbacks for me. So I don't think I'll get there. Javonte, and I believe he's questionable to even play.
Yeah.
Is in the player pool. Believe it or not, I'm not getting to this game. You want to play CeeDee Lamb? I think he's one of the best receivers in the league and could easily have a great game. The offensive side for the Chargers, just way too even of a distribution, which is kind of indicative of just a good football team overall and not, just relying on a star player. I'm out on this game. Crazy as it sounds, indoors, 50 point total. I think I'm out unless you can let me play Brandon Aubrey at tight end.
I think I'm largely out on this game as well, but it's this next game that I want to talk about where I'm very much in on. This is probably one of 3 games this is the first of 3 actually that I'm really interested in. Let's talk about it. It's the Bengals and it's the Dolphins. Bengals on the road here, favored by 4.5, 47.5 point total. Now, the big news that broke yesterday that does affect this game to some degree from a DFS standpoint. Mike, I'll ask you the question. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is at quarterback instead of Tua. He's a flat 4K. I'm not interested in playing Quinn Ewers, but I wonder, Mike, does this affect the game environment enough for you to be like, I'm not quite as interested in this game? Achane 8,800, Waddle 6,800. It's the other side I'm more interested in, Mike, with Burrow being embarrassed last week. I do see somewhat of a bounce back here with Jamar Chase at 8,600. What are your thoughts in this game, Mike?
Yeah, this one is very, very interesting. Like, I think that Burrow individually definitely wants to have a better performance, right? And you have to always consider a guy like Jamar Chase. I like Chase. The question, and what I think is really, really kind of tough to answer this week, is where are you prioritizing Jamar Chase around the 2 Detroit Lions and Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon St. Brown?
Right.
And or Devon Achane on the other side, if you want to go back to that. It's not super easy to get all 3 of them together. You can do it, but you're definitely punting in a couple of spots. I like the Lions just a little bit more with a lot to play for. I like Chase, and I ultimately do think Burrow comes out there and has a much better performance. I don't think I'm going to play him though. I like some of the other spots just a little bit better. So I'm going to mostly be off of it. I'll play a little Chase. I was kind of looking at receiving yardage leaders to see if there was like a scenario where Jamar Chase could lead the league in receiving with a couple crazy weeks to end the year. I don't think it's possible. He's behind by about 400 yards to JSN right now. JSN, very tough matchup tonight. And I don't think it's possible. So I'm gonna mostly be off or defaulting to the Lions side just a little more, but Chase is in my player pool, and that's it from this game.
Meg, this could be a situation for me where just on the 1 o'clock slate, I really invest in this game. And then I pull, because we liked that first game that we talked about, the Bucks to some degree. We like some pieces. Obviously, we like pieces in all the games, but to some degree. But I might pull some pieces out of that game. Like I mentioned, Ibuka, maybe Jalen Coker to make my lineup fit at 4,400. But a Burrow to Chase stack again, and it's a narrative building a little bit in a bounce back spot. With Achane coming back, you'll have to have some cheap pieces in your lineup. But how do you feel about that maybe on the 1 o'clock slate only? Or do you like it so much that you'd actually be willing to play that on the full main slate?
I actually probably do like that more on the 1 o'clock slate. I think that's a great shout out and great point. Because like you said, you could pair it with, maybe just one or two other certain games on this 1 p.m. slate. So I really do like that a lot. I like Burrow more, honestly, if Higgins does play, just in general. So we have to watch and pay attention to that. Obviously, I don't like the fact that, not that Tua has been lighting the world on fire, but with Quinn Ewers makes me nervous and queasy about Dolphins players. But does that make Achane like a better check down? Does that make Waller a short area target? And so for Waller's price, I'm interested only because I'm hoping, sometimes a bad quarterback or young quarterback's best friend is a tight end in the short area. So Waller, because of his price, Achane, because he's Achane, and this is a bad run defense in the Bengals. So those are the two Dolphins I'm interested in. And yes, I am interested in the Burrow stack, but more so if Higgins plays. And great shout out. Definitely like it more on the 1 p.m. only slate.
Waller only 3,500. I feel like with Waller, it's like Tua. Who's my biggest guy? Let me just throw it up, and my biggest guy is going to come down and catch it, which felt like that's what he was doing on that first drive to Waddle. He just threw it up, and it's like, no, you can't do that. But you can do it with Waller. I just don't know if Quinn Ewers is going to do the same thing. But to your point, he's only 3,500. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how this offense runs. I'll be playing that stack on the 1 o'clock slate, but to your point, probably not playing it on the main slate. I will say this, Mike, I don't know if you can pull this up in terms of what your simulations are showing with respect to defenses, but the Bengals defense and the Titans defense both make sense to me. Of course, Titans are going to play Gardner Minshew, Titans at home, Bengals on the road, but get to face Quinn Ewers. Are like in terms of cheap defenses. I know you mentioned the Jets at basically the minimum. Would those defenses be coming up in your simulations?
Yeah, certainly playable. Certainly playable. And I would say in the case of the Titans, for example, probably going to get a little better leverage in that spot just because we think Minshew's probably going to be played a little bit. So lean there. Certainly don't hate the idea of the Cincinnati side. There are a lot of defenses that I think can be played this week.
Yeah, it makes sense with all the quarterback situations. Certainly a lot of defenses that can be played. All right, we got to get to the 4 o'clock games. We got to get to Meg, your cheat sheet, my cheat sheet. And of course, everybody waits for Mike's top 3 at each position. We're going to go to Jags Broncos next, right after this message from our partners.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
It's time to move to the 4 o'clock games on Fantasy Football Today DFS, and we go to the Jaguars and the Denver Broncos. Both teams playing very well. Of course, Trevor Lawrence has this NFL MVP completely locked up at this point. Broncos favored by 3, 46.5 point total. Of course, I'm just being facetious. I'm starting to receive some hate, Meg, on my Trevor Lawrence takes, but I stand by them because I don't think he's a good quarterback. Meg, this is a 47.5 point total. I don't like this game. I'm not into, like, this is a high total, and Trevor's playing great, but he's got to play the Denver defense, and I'm not going to be a believer in Bo Nix in terms of his ceiling. I'm just out on this game, but I will point out Brian Thomas 5,400, Jacoby Myers, who's been great, is only 5,500. Travis Etienne up to 7K, RJ Harvey 6,200. Meg, what do you like in this game?
I'm very similar to you. It's like I'm trying to force myself to like pieces in this game. I really don't like naturally gravitate to this game, even though the total tells me I should be interested. I definitely would probably approach it from the Broncos side. Nix, Harvey, Sutton, those kind of things. There's some good price points in this game. It's just, it's like, it's hard to explain. It's just like my mindset is, it's like I'm having to force myself to like pieces, but so I don't know ultimately if I'm going to get to much, but I do have Nix, Harvey, Sutton. If pay attention to obviously the second receiver for the Broncos, you could go to Troy Franklin. We want to see the status on Pat Bryant.
Right.
You can always check that out. I mean, with Tootin out, ETN coming off a massive game in the receiving game, but like you said, the price point's high there. So, the price point's great on BTJ, got in the end zone last week. Just don't know if I'll get there. There's other mid-price receivers that I like and I'm considering. So yeah, it's one of those where there's guys in my player pool here, but I don't know how often I'll truly get to them, if I'm being honest.
Mike, the only guy I could even make an argument for, and this is just me, is maybe Bo Nix. I'm out on this game. How about you?
Yeah, out on the game. The Jags are not playing the Jets. So yeah, I'm not playing anything here. If you wanted to need another tight end, Strange is always, playable, I suppose, but I'm not playing anything in this game.
All right, let's move on because the next three games are pretty great. Well, at least two of them are pretty great, but all three of them are indoor. Now, again, I said weather's not going to affect any of these games in a huge way, in my opinion, or at least that's how it looks right now. But anytime you get good conditions in December, I should say optimal conditions up near Christmas here, it's something to take an extra look at, and it's reflected in the totals. Falcons -3 at the Cardinals, 48.5 point total. Drake London returned to practice. We'll see if he actually plays. He missed his last 4 games. Marvin Harrison, another guy, limited on Wednesday, missed the last 2 games. We'll have to see what his status is as well. But, Mike, I look at Jacoby Brissett, and I can't help but think I have to play this guy at 5,300. Now, I'm sure everybody's thinking that, and this is a game of ownership as much as it is production, but still, well, I mean, first of all, cash game, I'm throwing him in there, but even in tournaments, I'm playing Jacoby Brissett. Are you?
Yes, I'm going to play some Brissett. May not be, every lineup, but definitely playing him. Really like this spot for him. I like, I think that you could play double tight end just with this game if you wanted to play Trey McBride and Kyle Pitts. I like Michael Wilson. Once again, I know the price point's elevated. It's been justified, right? We've seen many double-digit target games. You're playing indoors in a controlled environment. Atlanta, kind of similar to my thoughts on Minnesota. They've been eliminated. They're still going to go out there and try and play, and I think they're going to try and win games. And you look at the situation here, I think they're going to throw the football a ton still. So I don't think Drake London plays in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And if Drake London is out, David Sills is in every single lineup for me.
Interesting.
He's 3,700. He's fighting for his life as a professional football player at this point, on this 1-year deal. Certainly has nothing lined up after this. And Kirk Cousins likes him a lot. And he had double-digit targets in this last game against Tampa. You get the controlled conditions, which is always a great thing for a quarterback this age. I think that we just see a lot of passing volume back and forth. So he's not going to show up in models necessarily until you get news that Drake London is out. But yeah, I like this game a lot. My core lineup for like my top lineup right now has Michael Wilson, Kyle Pitts, and David Sills in it.
So Sills had a huge catch at the end of the game to help Atlanta win. He also had a huge drop on a perfect pass from Kirk Cousins. That really should have been a touchdown. But yeah, the production was there. And let's be honest, Dylan Drummond, Kadarius Hodge, Devin Tompkins, I don't even think, I mean, they saw the field, but barely. So it really was, if again, this is all like, I guess if Drake London is out, but Darnell Mooney did a lot of production. I don't think there's a lot of trust between Darnell Mooney and Kirk Cousins. So it could be the Kyle Pitts and wait for it, the David Sills show for the Atlanta side. So Mike, real quick, Bijan Robinson, in or out on him at 8,700.
I'll be out mostly because I'm going to play Gibbs, but
okay.
I don't mind it. Like there's definitely scenarios Bijan has a massive game. The real scenario I worry about is he just has a really good game without the touchdowns is what I worry about. Right. So I think he has 120 combined yards or more, but just it isn't getting the touchdown work. So yeah, I like the receivers a little bit here.
Meg, what do you feel about this game on either side? I do want to mention that the running back situation with Bam Knight out for the season, it does look like Michael Carter will be starting at 5,400, but Amari DiMarcado, if he's healthy, he's definitely going to get some work as well. Michael Wilson, 6,900, Trey McBride, 7,600. How involved are you in this game, Meg?
Well, I agree with you on the Brissett side, and anyway, you wanted to stack that. But I actually, maybe it's just from, the Thursday night primetime game and Cousins putting up a good game. I'm visiting my parents right now for a while, but when I'm at my house, there's always a Kirk Cousins. You like that shirt. So I've always been a Kirk gal, and always, love seeing him have the game he had last week. He could have a game like this in a controlled environment against the Cardinals defense.
100%.
And how I would approach it, and whether you wanted to do it on 4 p.m. only or main slate to just do like a stars and scrubs, I like approaching it with just Kirk Cousins and Bijan Robinson, because I'm like Mike and you, I'm sure Gibbs is a big priority to me on this slate. But you do a Kirk Cousins lineup and you can do a Kirk Cousins, Bijan, Gibbs situation. So I like Kirk Cousins and Bijan Robinson together on this slate. And I will say, if Harrison gets ruled in, then I'm totally out on Michael Wilson. And it depends on like the speak that we get about Harrison. But if Harrison's totally ruled in, I wonder if he might not be a fun, like, contrarian play, especially on 4 p.m. only. So I'm paying very close attention to that. Obviously paying very close attention to Drake London and the impacts that has, for the Falcons receivers, especially Kyle Pitts. But just wanted to mention that about these, these are two big injury situations we need to pay attention to Saturday night, Sunday morning. And I'm keeping my eye on that because I'd like to maybe make some contrarian stands based on those injury news.
Meg, if Wilson and Harrison are playing, does that affect your take on Trey McBride? Like, would you still be just as in on Trey McBride?
If Harrison's playing, I would probably be out on Trey McBride, just because I do think it's going to affect his target share at some level, obviously. So I'll say it that way, yes, it would affect Trey McBride if Marvin Harrison is a full go, no questions.
Mike, what about you? Because I feel like Trey McBride's target volume and target share is kind of impenetrable no matter what receivers are on the field. And I'm not looking at stats to back that up. I'm not looking at that in terms of when both Marvin and Michael Wilson have been on the field, but I just feel like that's the case. He's just going to get his allotment of targets.
Generally want to believe that. I think he's going to get enough targets to be effective no matter what. You certainly don't want Harrison out there if you want all the upside. I mean, just removing another capable receiver is a huge deal. I think you could dock Trey McBride a little bit just because of the price point if Harrison is there, but overall you're kind of either in on McBride or out on McBride. Regardless, it would be a different story if they had like another great receiver, but I think the passing volume is going to be there.
All right, let's move to Raiders, Texans. I mean, not a lot to talk about, especially on this Raiders side. Texans favored by 14.5, 37.5 point total. The running back situation for the Texans is something that I think we need to monitor, but I also think we're just going to end up being completely out because we're not exactly sure how it's going to be split up. Woody Marks, we're not sure if he's going to play, but if he's quote healthy enough to play, nobody's going to want to play him. But if he's healthy enough to play, that means we're not going to want to play Chubb or Jordan. I don't think anybody wants to play Agumbawale in terms of this running back split. So Mike, CJ Stroud's only 5,500. That's kind of cool, but like this is not the game environment where I'm looking for the receivers or the quarterback. And because I'm kind of Xing out the running backs, unless somehow Marks and Chubb don't play, then I get to play Jordan at 5K. I'm out, and I'm out on the Raiders. So Mike, are we out on this game?
Largely. Stroud's going to be another case that projects well in DFS because of the price point and just kind of how projections generally work. He's got the scenario like there's a wide range of outcomes here. There's a scenario where he has essentially 10 to 12 points on DK or up in the mid 20s again, where he does get there with 3 touchdown passes, 2 long passes to Nico, or I don't want to try to attack it. I think there are enough situations that I don't think there's a huge scenario where CJ Stroud scores 30 and really separates. And I think there is meaningful downside. The defense could very easily score touchdowns in this game.
Yeah.
The Raiders team total that you can actually bet is 10.5 this week. That is not a first half number. That is a full game team total at 10.5 in the National Football League.
Yeah. I mean, it was 12.5 last week. I mentioned it on this show or another one where I got it up to 13.5. I didn't make this an official play, unfortunately, and I took the under at -130 and they scored 0. So I don't see any reason how, like, 10.5 and 12.5, I realize there's a difference, but there's not much of one. I don't see them getting over 10 points in this game. I'm not seeing that. Meg, do we like anything in this game?
No, not really. There's just too many other spots. Of course, you could play Nico Collins. As he showed last week, he always has that in his bag, especially against this Raiders defense. But to pay $7,500 in a game where they might not be playing, much of the second half or need to, no, I'm pretty much out on this game.
All right, let's go to the final game of the 4:00 slate, and this is the final game we'll talk about before we get to our cheat sheets and top 3 at each position, and we'll touch on this Thursday night game as well. Lions at home, again, indoor, controlled environment, favored by 7 against the Steelers, 52.5 point total. There's obviously a lot to consider here. Jared Goff is 6,300, very reasonable price in my opinion. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8,500. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8,400. Jamison Williams, 6,400. I want to play all of them. On the other side, I'm probably not in on DK Metcalf at 5,400, although I completely get that argument. I'm not in on the tight ends, but Kenneth Gainwell, I'm very much in on at 5,100. So Meg, I'm going to start with you. How you playing this game?
Well, when you heard me say earlier, game by game, there's too many other spots I like. It was a lot of these games in the 4:00 slate, but especially this one, it's like, I want to play all of it. I mean, we got a 52.5 total indoors. Steelers can be conservative at times, and it's frustrating if you're rostering them. Well, they can't be conservative in this game if they want to have any chance. You can't do that against Dan Campbell and the Lions. So I just really love everything in this game. Certainly you could do Jared Goff stacks. You could certainly include Gibbs in that, or stack him with both his receivers. I know that was certainly a great strategy last week. And so Gibbs is a priority for me, plain and simple. Like Mike said, most lineups are going to have Gibbs for me, whether it's main or 4 p.m. only. But yeah, also like Goff stacks. And if you want to include Gibbs, that's fine. Also like Aaron Rodgers stacks. You see on the graphic that Mike has, 508 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The last 2 games has been incredibly efficient. He's kind of like, which sounds weird because he and Matt Stafford are both Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks, but he's almost like a poor man's Matt Stafford in that you're going to need him to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns for him to be a viable thing. But I think this is the spot where he could do it. Lions are a pass funnel defense. They're going to have to be aggressive to keep up. So you're going to have to, like Mike said earlier about Baker, there's no way you're single stacking, Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to have to be either Rodgers, Metcalf, and one of the tight ends, or Rodgers, Metcalf, and hey, maybe MVS or Adam Thielen, something like that. That would be incredibly low owned, even on a 4 p.m. slate. So you're going to have to double or triple stack it. But I honestly don't mind that, especially in the 4 p.m. slate. But I'm honestly considering it for the main slate to do like a Rodgers double stack with a Gibbs, maybe Gibbs and a Lions receiver bring back. So sorry I went so long, but there is so much I like in this game. And oh, by the way, I love your call about Kenny Gainwell too. So it's just like, there's not much I don't like in this game, truly.
MVS only 3K. I mean, if you want to make the argument that perhaps he's already won Aaron Rodgers' trust, which may or may not be true, and you need to make your lineups work because you're playing a double stack with Goff and let's say Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown or whatever you're doing. Maybe the salary relief comes in a dart throw on the Pittsburgh side. Mike, I already know you like Gibbs. So I guess the question I have for you on the Detroit side is, okay, so you're playing Gibbs, but who are you playing him with on the Detroit side?
I like Gibbs pretty much every lineup. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I might have the scenario where I just play the two of those guys in almost every lineup this week, regardless of whether I play Goff or not. I do like Goff. I know he's more expensive. Whenever I back Goff, it's indoors for sure in these situations. So very much all in on the Detroit side. With those three, I will still sprinkle a little Jameson Williams in larger field tournaments. I do like him. Would you Jameson Williams is knocking on the door of 1,000-yard season, and one or two big games down the stretcher, he might actually have more receiving yards than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Isn't that crazy to think about when you think about how much more we think of Amon-Ra St. Brown? But they're going to have two 1,000-yard receivers in this offense while still watching Jahmyr Gibbs have 1,000 yards rushing. Just absolutely incredible. So I like all three of those, well, all four of those guys on the Detroit side. I love DK Metcalf. I think they're going to be in a situation where they're trailing and have to throw it to him. And I love Kenny Gainwell because I think they're going to be in a situation where they're trailing and have to throw it to him. So I like some scoring on both sides. Rodgers looks phenomenal. I know he's tough. I know he likes to play in the cold, quote unquote. He doesn't. You talk to him. He hates playing in the cold. He's just tough and he's good. And he's played a lot of his career in the cold. Getting him indoors this late in the season is nice as well. So love this game. By far will be overweight to the field, even though it will be popular. I'll be even more on the field. The last thing I'll say about the Lions, it's must-win game. The only way the Lions make the playoffs is to win out, period. And there's a nightmare scenario that they win out and still don't make the playoffs.
Right.
So it's, we'll see what happens tonight. The only way that they would pass one of the two teams in the NFC West is if they went out and those NFC West teams lose out. So if Seattle wins tonight, for example, at home, it's impossible for them to overtake Seattle. So their focus is clearly in division, but it's every game's a Super Bowl. When I want to back this team, it's at home with the crowd and Dan Campbell with a must-win game. Like it's feed the football to your two best players, Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm doing everything I can to get them in the same lineup.
Last question on this. The Gibbs ARSB, I should have just said Amon-Ra St. Brown. I thought that'd be shorter lineups. Do they have Jared Goff in them? In other words, like if you're building, let's say, like three lineups with those two guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, how many of those three also have Jared Goff?
Quite a few, but not all of them. So the reason they won't all have Goff is like, yes, I love Goff. It's expensive. So I may drop down to Brissett, save $1,000. I may drop down to JJ McCarthy at 4,900, or even, as Meg said, Kirk Cousins at 48, Minshew at 45. Essentially would be willing to play any of those to make it work.
And so the part of the reason I asked you that is because I built a lineup yesterday on the main slate. And because and for the record, it didn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown. It had Gibbs and it had Jameson Williams. But let's just assume I could afford Amon-Ra St. Brown. I had Jacoby Brissett in that lineup to save the money, but I didn't have Jacoby Brissett with Trey McBride or Michael Wilson, which sounds completely foolish because it's such a condensed target share for Arizona, especially if Marvin Harrison is out. But in that circumstance, I was just trying to get a couple of those Detroit guys in and save money at the quarterback position. Is that a viable thing to do?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
There are scenarios where while you don't have Trey McBride and Michael Wilson, if it allows you to play Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, there are definitely scenarios where Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs outscore the combination of Michael Wilson and Trey McBride, and you're matched on QB. So yes, it's very viable.
All right. That's going to be, obviously that's a lineup I've already done. So probably going to submit a lineup that looks like that, everyone, just so you know. Let's go to our cheat sheets and our top three at each position. Man, we went really long on those 11 games, but a few of those, Meg, like you said, you thought you were talking for a long time. I don't know if you were or not, but like there was a lot to say about that game. And honestly, we didn't even really cover it all. We could have spent another 5 minutes on that game. Let's go to your cheat sheet, Meg. We're talking stack, chalk buy, chalk fade, contrarian, and some value options.
Sure. Yeah. My stack is going to be Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and that big NFC South matchup. Chalk buy, we've been talking about it. Jahmyr Gibbs, of course. My chalk fade is going to be Kyle Pitts. I just don't think he's going to repeat last week. And I'm seeing him come with a lot of ownership. And we still have to find out, of course, if London is playing. Contrarian play, it looks like Jalen Coker. I like that big NFC South game, it looks like Jalen Coker right now is looking to be lower owned. So I like Jalen Coker as my contrarian play. Value, usually for me, value is any cheap tight end. I put Darren Waller for now just because, while I don't love that he is Quinn Ewers, I think he'll still get plenty of targets, and he has a great matchup in that game. So there's, other cheap tight ends I'll go to, but Darren Waller does have a great matchup, and think he could be a friend for Quinn Ewers in this game.
All right. I'm going to go to Jacoby Brissett to Trey McBride. But again, just like I said, I'm willing to play Jacoby Brissett without a stacking partner potentially. And obviously the Marvin Harrison news, it doesn't impact Trey McBride quite as much in my opinion, but I do think it impacts this, just this game in general and Trey and Michael Wilson, something to keep an eye on. But Jacoby to Trey, I really like that game environment in general. My chalk buy is going to be Bijan Robinson. I'm hoping we get some pushback. Obviously that's a run back for the Jacoby stacks. So I like that, even though it's very expensive at 8,700. Chalk fade Jacoby Myers. I saw he was getting some ownership. Maybe that fades. Maybe it goes down. But as of now, he was getting enough ownership for me to consider him a chalk fade. Contrarian play, Ibuka. Listen, he's very hit or miss. I think he's got a reasonably low floor, especially with all the weapons back. But I think he's got a high ceiling, especially in this game. So Ibuka at 5,900, especially when people are going to go right to Justin Jefferson at 6,000, because that makes sense to everybody. I think Ibuka will be slightly lower owned than people anticipate. Value play, usually I like to go with like a super low end receiver. I agree with Jalen Coker. I saw Meg had that in there. So I erased that and I went with the value running back because I really like Kenneth Gainwell. I understand Jalen Warren exists, but I really like Kenneth Gainwell in this game environment at 5,100. All right, we're going to go to top three at each position. Mike McClure, we're going to start with the quarterback.
All right. Let's start with Jared Goff for me. Love Jacoby Brissett as well, though, and then JJ McCarthy. For right now, that's where I'm going to be locked in. Just the do-or-die nature of the Lions getting to play indoors. I like this spot. I think it's a back-and-forth game, and I'm very high on his top two weapons in Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. McCarthy, I think that this Vikings team is just competitive to end the season, and he's got just enough rushing upside. Love the spot against a weak Giants defense at this point. And then Jacoby Brissett, just too cheap, still 5,300 indoors in another very competitive game where I think the Falcons can push him. So Goff, McCarthy, and Brissett.
Love that. Let's go to top three running backs.
Jahmyr Gibbs, by far and away, number one for me, will be in every lineup. And in order to make that work, you need a little salary savings. I like Aaron Jones and Kenny Gainwell. Gainwell, obviously, in that Detroit game. I think that there's going to be some pushback from the Steelers in this one. I think he's clearly going to be involved in the passing game. And then Aaron Jones, I think, will also be involved in the passing game, has some rushing upside, some big play upside against the New York Giants.
Top three wide receivers.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. Have you figured out that I like the Lions this week offensively? Yeah. Okay, so number one receiver for me, going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. Michael Wilson right now could change a little bit if Harrison is ruled in, but if he's not, it's the Michael Wilson show, double-digit targets. The price point is absolutely warranted. And then DK Metcalf, again, Lions game. Steelers going to push back. Controlled conditions. Love this for DK Metcalf. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Wilson, DK Metcalf. Only other note to include, if Drake London is indeed out, David Sills will be on this list.
All right. Top three tight ends.
Kyle Pitts, Harold Fannin, and Trey McBride. Kyle Pitts, I think it's a little sticky what he's doing right now. He's got a lot of confidence, and he's got a quarterback that's very willing to throw him the football. On the other side of that game, Trey McBride, love that. Fannin listed for now. I will say I may play Travis Kelce. I want to see when the depth chart comes out a little bit. After looking at things, he's got an opportunity for a 1,000-yard season here. I think that's important to him. It would take big games. Had immediate chemistry with Minshew, and Minshew came in that at the very end of that game. Nashville is still a spot that's, something he cares about in terms of Taylor Swift. I want to see a little more data before I pivot and play Travis Kelce in this spot, but I may. At 4,700, I haven't ruled him out, and I did overlook it just a touch when we went through that game.
All right, let's go to Meg. Let's get your take on, let's just call it a pick 'em, which it kind of is at this point. Let's go to Seattle and the Rams tonight. Who do you like?
Maybe I have too much recency bias from Seattle almost getting upset by old Grandpa Rivers and the Colts. But I'm going to go Rams even without, I know Devontae's doubtful. I don't think we have official word on that yet. I'm going to go Rams. I just think they're the better team and in a pick'em. And, I know weather might not be as bad as we think, but there is going to be some wind and weather. So I'm just going to go with, Matt Stafford and the Rams and the team that I think is the better team, but not confidently.
I lean to the Rams as well. That was my initial gut reaction, was the Rams, but it's you can make arguments either way. Mike, what do you like in this one?
Slightest of Seahawk leans, first quarter under. Look, I think the Rams are no doubt the better team. And if you want more on this, watch the early edge episode at the end. We talked in depth about this. The Rams are the best team in the NFL right now. They are a very clear-cut Super Bowl favorite. This is also a very difficult spot to walk into Thursday night in potential weather. I think that'll be early mostly. Without the best playmaker in the NFL. Yes, I say the best red zone playmaker in the NFL to that offense. Devontae Adams changes everything in terms of red zone scoring for this offense. Seattle, while I think that they can be a little vulnerable between the 20s, they are very, very stout in the red zone, particularly with the home field at home. I think that Seattle could surprise and get this one. And then the Rams ultimately still go on to win the Super Bowl.
I like that take. I think the Rams are the best team in the NFL. I had a couple of leans that will probably be official plays on Sportsline later, but not quite yet because I'm waiting for the line to move in my favor. I like Sam Darnold over pass attempts. It's 30.5 right now, but I was hoping it would tick down to 29.5. And a slight lean to A.J. Barner over 29.5 receiving yards. That line coming down as well. So I'm maybe hoping to catch a 28.5 on an A.J. Barner over first touchdown score. I think we had, go watch the early edge, by the way. It's on the sport. If you're watching on this channel, you might not be subscribed to the Sportsline YouTube channel. Go subscribe to that. We do our show every single Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock. And on Mondays and on Thursdays, we really lean into the primetime games, which I know everybody watching here is going to want to hear about. Meg, you had one more thing, right?
Yeah, I had to give you a shout out, Sia. Speaking of Sportsline, obviously early edge, love watching. And when I join you guys is amazing, but also love the prop show. And I tailed your Ricky Pearsall ladder. So I can't leave without saying, I think I tweeted you and put it in the comments, but I absolutely love the Ricky Pearsall ladder shout out. And we thought, oh, he's injured. He comes back and he just nails it. So amazing, pick last week. And I was tailing you and I loved it.
That one was great. So I went 2 out of 3 ultimately, but it really was better than that because we hit Jameson Williams over, by the way. But the Ricky Pearsall ladder on that prop show, everybody, I said it's 32.5 receiving yards. And I literally said, I need you to ladder it 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus, 80 plus. And I really never go that far on a ladder, but I said on the show is one of my favorite plays that I've given out. And it turned out he covered all of those rungs of the ladder. So that was really great. Again, go over to the Sportsline YouTube channel. But thanks for joining us on this Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel as well. Again, upcoming show schedule. We're not going to do it next Thursday at 11. We're going to do it Friday at 11 on December 26th. And then the following Thursday, it's going to be bumped to Friday as well. So the next 2 shows are going to be on a Friday. That's pretty easy to remember, but it's still going to be at the same time. And it's still going to be live on this YouTube channel. So make sure you're dialed in live with us and comment, ask questions, things of that nature. Let's answer a question before we get out of here real quick. Greg Gousset says, building my lineup down to Jefferson or Wandale. Who do we trust? I'm leaning Wandale Robinson, but it will probably be Jefferson's breakout game, he says. I lean Wandale too, because I think the ownership's going to be lower. And I think the way that Brian Flores plays defense, we're looking at like the deep shot, like pretty good against the run. They don't allow the deep shots. I feel like Wandale's going to live in that short area. I don't mind Wandale at all, especially considering ownership. Mike, any thoughts there?
It just depends on who your quarterback is. Like if you're in that game and it's between those two because you're playing JJ McCarthy, then the answer is Justin Jefferson to me. So that's the only reason I say that between those two. Like I would ask you, why are you between those two? And if it's because you're playing JJ McCarthy, Justin Jefferson is who I would play. If not, and you're just between those two, I would consider looking at other options potentially.
Yeah, maybe Abuka, for example. Kirk Schroyer says, thanks, Sia, Meg, and Mike. Thank you for being in here. Big Cheesy is in here as well. He's got some plays in the chat, including Kenneth Walker over 11.5 receiving yards at -110. All right. And he says, don't sleep on Mumpfield tonight. I actually agree with that. There's a lot of fringe players that might get some real action, particularly on the Rams side. So something maybe to keep your eyes on. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to get out of here. We took up an hour and 10 minutes of your time, but it was a great show. We're going to be here next Friday on this YouTube channel. So make sure you join us then next Friday, day after Christmas at 11 o'clock. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Meg. And a huge thank you to Matt, who was just really hooking up this show with the graphics and all the content you see on this live show every single day. See you next time on Fantasy Football Today, DFS. Have a great weekend, everybody.